Found out. My fiancé was living a double life. He had a whole other family in another state, so I sent his wife a message. I never thought I'd be the woman discovering her fiancé had a secret family. But one missed call changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening when I found out David, my fiancé of 2 years, wasn't the man I thought he was. We had been planning our wedding for October, just 6 months away. I'd already bought my dress, sent out save the dates, and was finalizing the venue details when my world collapsed. David worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep, which meant he traveled frequently, usually gone Monday through Thursday, home for long weekends. This arrangement had been our normal since we met 3 years ago. I never questioned it because his schedule was consistent, and he always called me every night while away. That Tuesday, he missed our nightly call. At first, I didn't worry. Meetings run late, phones die, people fall asleep. But by morning, when I still hadn't heard from him, concern started creeping in. I tried calling again, but it went straight to voicemail. I remembered he had mentioned staying at the Marriott in Indianapolis, so I called the hotel to leave a message. That's when everything unraveled. "I'm sorry, but we don't have a David Miller registered with us," the receptionist said. "That can't be right. He stays there every month," I insisted. "We have no record of a David Miller checking in yesterday or any time this month." My stomach dropped. I hung up and immediately called his company. The receptionist there was friendly until I mentioned David's name. "I'm sorry, who are you trying to reach?" "David Miller, I'm his fiancé." There was a pause. "Ma'am, we don't have anyone by that name working here." The room started spinning. 3 years of my life suddenly felt like quicksand beneath my feet. I sat down at my kitchen table and tried to make sense of what was happening. No hotel reservation, no job at the company he claimed to work for. What else had he lied about? With shaking hands, I went to his laptop. He'd left it at my apartment, which was unusual. He claimed it contained sensitive work information and normally guarded it carefully. Now I understood why. The password didn't work. Or rather, the password I knew didn't work. I tried several variations before finally gaining access using his daughter's birthday. A daughter from a previous relationship who lived with her mother in Colorado. At least, that's what he'd told me. His email loaded, and my heart pounded as I scrolled through his inbox. There it was. Evidence. Flight confirmations. But not to Indianapolis, to Atlanta. Every week, same pattern, for years. Hotel reservations in Atlanta, not Indianapolis. And then I saw it. An email thread with someone named Jennifer Miller. My blood went cold. Miller was David's last name. And mine, soon, or so I thought. I clicked on the thread and began reading. The emails were casual, domestic even. Plans for their son's birthday party. Discussion about their mortgage payment. A reminder about their daughter's dance recital. Son? Daughter? Mortgage? The floor seemed to drop out from under me. David didn't have a traveling sales job. David had another family, a wife, 2 children, a house in the suburbs of Atlanta. I scrolled frantically through the emails, piecing together the nightmare. Based on the timestamps and content, I realized his pattern. Monday through Thursday with his wife and kids in Atlanta. Friday through Sunday with me in Chicago. For 3 years. How had I not seen it? The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. His business trips always followed the same schedule. He always had a reason why I couldn't visit him while he was traveling. He never introduced me to coworkers. His social media presence was minimal. For privacy, he'd claimed. In a daze, I moved from emails to photos. There they were. Family vacations, Christmas mornings, his son's baseball games, his daughter's dance recitals, his wife, a pretty blonde woman who looked nothing like me, smiling beside him in dozens of photos. The most recent was from just last week. They looked happy. Normal. Like we did in our photos together. The same arm around the shoulder, the same smile, the same man leading a completely different life. I felt sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, then collapsed on the cool tile floor. My mind raced. 3 years. I'd given this man 3 years of my life. I'd integrated him into my family, introduced him to my friends, planned a future around him, and the entire time he'd been living a double life. When I finally pulled myself together, anger replaced the shock. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. This wasn't just about me. It was about that woman in Atlanta, Jennifer, who had no idea her husband was engaged to someone else. I needed proof before confronting him. I took photos of the emails, the pictures, the flight confirmations. I found their home address in Atlanta. I even found Jennifer's Facebook profile, locked down, but with a public profile picture of her with David and their children. Then I made a decision that would change not just my life, but theirs too. I sent Jennifer a message. "I don't know how to say this, but I've been engaged to your husband for 2 years. I just discovered the truth today. I have proof, and I think we should talk." I included my phone number and waited, my heart pounding. Would she think I was crazy? Would she ignore me? Would she tell David? My phone rang 30 minutes later. A Georgia area code. Is this Emily? A woman's voice, calm but tight. Yes. This is Jennifer Miller. I think we need to talk about David. What followed was the most surreal conversation of my life. Jennifer wasn't hysterical. She wasn't in denial. She was methodical, asking specific questions about when I'd met David, how often I saw him, what I knew about his life. And then she dropped another bombshell. Emily, I need to tell you something. You're not the only one. My stomach lurched. What do you mean? Last year, I found evidence that David was seeing someone in Denver, a woman named Melissa. He explained it away, convinced me it was over, that it was a mistake. I chose to believe him for the kids' sake. Her voice cracked slightly. I've suspected there might be others, but I haven't had proof. Until now, until me. We talked for over an hour, comparing notes, filling in the gaps in each other's understanding of the man we'd both loved, the man neither of us really knew. He'll be home tomorrow, Jennifer said finally. Thursday night, like always. He's supposed to come back to Chicago on Friday morning, I replied. The pattern, always the pattern. What do you want to do, she asked. We made a plan, a simple, devastating plan. When David returned to Atlanta Thursday evening, he walked into his house to find both his wife and his fiancée sitting in the living room. The look on his face, shock, fear, the desperate calculation of a man whose carefully constructed lies were collapsing, will stay with me forever. He tried to talk his way out of it, of course. Claimed I was obsessed with him, that we'd only dated briefly. Jennifer cut him off, held up her phone with screenshots of our conversation, the evidence I'd sent her. Don't, she said simply. It's over, David. He begged. He cried. He tried to separate us, to speak to each of us alone. We refused. I handed him the engagement ring. Jennifer handed him divorce papers. She'd had them drawn up months ago, she told me later, but hadn't found the courage to serve them. Until now. The aftermath was messy, as these things always are. We discovered there was indeed a third woman in Denver, plus a fourth we hadn't known about in Nashville. All of us connected, shared our stories, our pain, our anger. It's been a year since that night in Atlanta. Jennifer and I have remained in contact, an unusual friendship forged in the fire of betrayal. She's rebuilding her life, focusing on her children. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. As for me, I've moved to a new apartment, one without memories of David in every corner. I sold my wedding dress and used the money for therapy. I'm learning to trust again, slowly. David still tries to contact me sometimes. New numbers, new email addresses. I block them all. He's someone else's problem now, or rather, he's his own problem, now that all of us have walked away. I often think about how easy it would have been to miss that crucial piece of evidence. How many more years I might have wasted on a man who was never fully mine. How close I came to marrying someone who was already married. One missed phone call. That's all it took to unravel the elaborate lie that was David Miller. Sometimes the universe has a strange way of showing you the truth you need to see. And sometimes, when your world falls apart, you find unexpected allies in the ruins. Update 1, 6 months later. It's been 6 months since I last updated, and I wanted to share what's been happening as so many of you have reached out asking for news. First, Jennifer's divorce from David was finalized 3 months ago. The judge was not sympathetic to David at all once the extent of his deception came to light. Jennifer got the house, primary custody of the kids, and substantial child support. David didn't contest anything. I think he knew how badly he'd come off in court. As for the other women, Melissa from Denver has moved on completely. She was only with David for about 8 months and had already been having doubts. Finding out about me, Jennifer, and Catherine, the woman from Nashville, gave her the closure she needed. Catherine's situation was a bit different. She'd been seeing David on and off for almost 2 years, during his supposed extended training sessions. She thought they were in an exclusive but long-distance relationship. Catherine was devastated, but has since connected with a support group for victims of relationship fraud. She's doing better now. The most unexpected development has been my friendship with Jennifer. What started as 2 women united by betrayal has grown into a genuine connection. We talk weekly, and I've even visited Atlanta twice to see her. Her children are adorable and resilient. They're adjusting to their new normal better than anyone expected. Jennifer has started dating again recently, very cautiously. She met someone through her sister, a divorced dad who seems genuinely kind. She's taking it extremely slowly, but it's nice to see her allowing herself some happiness. As for David, he's facing consequences beyond just our collective heartbreak. His web of lies extended to his finances as well. He'd been maintaining separate accounts, taking out loans, and juggling expenses to maintain his multiple lives. The IRS is now involved due to some questionable tax filings, and his credit is destroyed. Last we heard, he's living in a small apartment and working at a car dealership, a significant step down from his fabricated pharmaceutical career. Someone asked if I regret messaging Jennifer that day. Not for a second. It was terrifying to send that message, but it was the right thing to do. 4 women were able to reclaim their lives because we chose truth over comfortable lies. I'm still working through everything in therapy, but I'm doing much better. I've started volunteering at a crisis hotline that supports people dealing with relationship trauma. Turning my experience into something that helps others has been healing. I've also started dating again, very slowly and with far better boundaries. I'd be lying if I said I didn't check potential dates' social media more thoroughly now, or that I don't have moments of paranoia. But I'm learning to trust my instincts again. The most important lesson I've learned is that healing isn't linear. Some days I feel completely over it. Other days, a song or smell will trigger a memory, and the pain feels fresh again. That's normal, my therapist assures me. Life continues. Not the life I had planned, but maybe a more authentic one. One where I know my own strength, where I value honesty above all else, and where I've found unexpected friendship through shared pain. Update 2 1 year later. A full year has passed since I discovered David's double life, and it feels like both yesterday and a lifetime ago. So much has changed. The biggest update, Jennifer got engaged last month. Her relationship with Mark, the guy her sister introduced her to, developed slowly and deliberately. Before he proposed, he actually reached out to me, asking if I'd meet with him. He wanted to understand what Jennifer had been through so he could be sensitive to her trust issues. We met for coffee, and I was impressed. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely invested in helping Jennifer heal while building something new. I gave him my wholehearted blessing. Jennifer's children adore Mark, which is beautiful to see. Her daughter recently started calling him bonus dad, which made everyone cry happy tears. The wedding is planned for next summer, and Jennifer has asked me to be a bridesmaid, an unconventional choice that perfectly represents our unconventional friendship. Catherine from Nashville has moved to Arizona for a fresh start and is thriving in a new career. Melissa from Denver is engaged to her longtime friend who helped her through the aftermath of David's betrayal. We all keep in touch through a group chat we jokingly call the Ex-Wives Club, though I'm the only one who wasn't actually married to him. As for David, his situation has deteriorated further. The IRS investigation uncovered several instances of fraud, and he's now facing criminal charges. He lost his job at the car dealership when his background check finally caught up with him. Jennifer says he's still making child support payments, but they're often late. The man who once maintained 4 separate lives can barely manage one now. In my own life, I've made some major changes. I left my job and started my own business as a consultant, something I'd always wanted to do but had put off because David insisted it was too risky. The irony isn't lost on me that I was taking life advice from someone living the biggest risk of all. My business is doing well, and the flexibility has allowed me to work remotely part-time. I've been traveling more, reclaiming my independence, and discovering who I am without the shadow of deception hanging over me. I am dating someone now, Alex. We met through a friend about 6 months ago and have been taking things very slowly. He knows my full story and has been incredibly patient with my trust issues. When we started getting serious, I actually hired a background investigator to verify the basics of his life, his job, his housing situation, his marital status. It might seem extreme, but Alex understood and even encouraged it. Whatever you need to feel safe, he said. The investigation found exactly what Alex had told me. He's exactly who he claims to be. A simple life with no secret families or fabricated careers. Just an honest person living authentically. It's refreshing. Last week, we had a conversation about exclusivity. I was nervous, feeling those old fears creeping back in. Alex sensed my anxiety and suggested something unexpected. He gave me all his passwords. Email, phone, social media, everything. I have nothing to hide, he said. And I understand why you need reassurance. I didn't actually use the passwords, but the gesture meant everything. Transparency after so much deception feels like the greatest gift. Jennifer says I'm different now. Stronger, more decisive, less willing to accept less than I deserve. She's right. The woman who sent that desperate Facebook message a year ago wasn't sure of herself. Today, I stand firmly in my truth. Sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. David's betrayal broke 4 women's hearts, but it also freed us to find authentic happiness and unexpected sisterhood. For anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts, seek the truth, and know that healing is possible on the other side of betrayal. Life after devastation can be more beautiful than you imagined. And to Jennifer, Catherine, and Melissa, my sisters in survival, thank you for turning a nightmare into a powerful new beginning. Final update 2 years later. It's been 2 years since my world imploded, and I've realized this will be my final update because, at some point, you have to stop defining your life by its worst chapter. So much has changed since my last update that it's hard to know where to begin. Jennifer and Mark got married in a beautiful ceremony 6 months ago. I stood beside her as a bridesmaid, watching her radiant with happiness. Her children were active participants, her daughter as flower girl, her son as ring bearer. There wasn't a dry eye when Mark included special vows to the children, promising to always respect their father's place in their lives while creating his own bond with them. Speaking of their father, David was sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion. The multiple lives he maintained required financial deception that eventually caught up with him. Jennifer has taken the children to visit him once, not for his sake, but for theirs. She believes in honesty and wants them to understand the consequences of their father's actions in an age-appropriate way. Catherine has found love with a woman, plot twist none of us saw coming. She says dating David made her question everything, including her sexuality. She's happier than I've ever seen her. Melissa is now married and expecting her first child. She's asked me to be the godmother, a responsibility I'm honored to accept. As for me, Alex and I moved in together 6 months ago. It was a big step that required a lot of trust on my part. We've established open phone policies and regular check-ins, not because we don't trust each other, but because we understand the importance of transparency. I've fully embraced my consulting business, which has grown beyond my expectations. I'm even writing a book about relationship deception and recovery, hoping to help others navigate similar situations. The most profound change, though, is internal. The panic attacks that plagued me in the early days have subsided. The compulsive checking and need for constant verification have eased. I no longer define myself as a victim of deception, but as a survivor who reclaimed her power. Last month, I received a letter from David forwarded from my old address. I almost threw it away unopened, but decided that would give him too much power. Inside was what you might expect. Apologies, excuses, requests for forgiveness. Nothing that changed anything. I didn't respond. His words no longer have power over me. Instead, I sent a gift to Jennifer, a custom necklace with 4 intertwined circles, representing the 4 women who found strength in each other. She, Catherine, and Melissa all received the same one. Mine hangs around my neck as I type this. A reminder not of betrayal, but of resilience. If you're reading this because you're going through something similar, know this. The pain isn't permanent. The shame isn't yours to carry. And sometimes the worst betrayal leads to unexpected blessings, like 3 new sisters I never would have found otherwise. This chapter of my life is closing now. The story of David's deception will always be part of my history, but it no longer defines my present or dictates my future. To everyone who followed this journey and offered support, thank you. To anyone struggling with betrayal, it gets better. Truth wins. And sometimes the family you need isn't the one you planned for. It's the one that forms in the aftermath of broken dreams.